I'm Brian with Socal Supermoto. A couple years back we did a blog post on mandatory mods for the Drz400 Supermoto, and it's probably our most viewed post, so I thought I'd do a quick video version of that. So we're just going to go through the bikes. We're going to tell you how we set them up. You can set them up however you like, but this is what works for us and how we like the feel of the bikes. So we'll start with the basics. We run all Dunlop Q3 tires. They're made in New York, they're cheap, they warm up really fast, and they stick killer. We said that before they were a sponsor. We just say it a lot more often now, but we absolutely love these tires. This bike right now, the rear is a 150 Q3 prototype. So normally we're not having a slick on the back, we just run the standard 160 Q3. So if you're worried about chain rub, you can get a chain guide from Toxic Moto Racing that'll take care of any chain rub when using the 160. Next up, suspension. We use stock suspension. So really only the difference here is how we set it up. On the top clickers, we max out the compression all the way. So no secrets there. On the bottom, we basically max the rebound dampening all the way and then back it off 3 clicks. This is just kind of our baseline where we start with bikes and then we adjust from there. Handlebars, I'm tall, so I use the RC highs, the Carmichael highs. I love these bars and they're really great for tall riders. Here's my absolute most mandatory of mandatory mods on the DRZ. If you swing around this way are these Zeta rubber killers. If you're wondering why your front end feels like a big noodle and a CRF 450 front end feels nice and solid, this is the reason why. The DRZs have rubber mounts up there and just gives a really vague feeling from the front end. So just swapping that out and getting rid of the headlight, which weighs a ton, it's amazing how much better the front end feels and how much faster it'll flick from side to side. Let's go on to the engine. We use the case guards, and my engines are pretty much stock. I like the E-gasket and I like the E-cams, but beyond that I'm not really doing any heavy engine mods. Bigger foot pegs. These are maybe DRCs, I don't actually remember. Let's go talk about the carburetor, which we could see on the other side, but you know, who cares, we're just going to talk about it. I actually like the old CV carbs. I know like everybody wants to switch to the FCRs. I think it's just my style of riding. I like to just focus on getting on the gas very early and very smooth. And I actually like the CV carb. So all I do as far as jetting is I go the Dyna Stage 2 jet kit and run an aftermarket pipe, and I don't really sweat it too much. Airbox, I don't do the 4x4. I just remove the snorkel, and that's enough for me. When they're too opened up, again, it kind of hurts the low end delivery coming off the corner. So I'm not telling you not to. I'm just saying I personally don't like the airbox all opened up. Next up is handguards. So I'm gonna bring you over to this bike. My bike's currently missing the handguards, so I just have folding levers instead. These are the cheapo Cycle Gear, $24 went on sale handguards. We've tested Cycras and the Chinese knockoffs, and we've tested every handguard, and we've crashed motorcycles more than anyone I've heard of. And these actually work better than any other handguard I've ever used. And so that's where I would go. The people ask me about that front fender on this bike. I think this is the older Cycra Supermoto fender. So if you have if you look up Cycra Supermoto fender, it's the one that doesn't have the second additional piece in the back of the bike. That's that. Rear suspension, we simply max out the compression. We just spin that clockwise all the way. We add a couple turns of preload, and that's it. We pretty much leave it at that. Brake pads, just using sintered brake pads. Most importantly, graphics for additional 5 horsepower. We use AMR Racing graphics. AMR is a sponsor. These things usually last longer than the DRZs. These graphics hold up great through multiple crashes. And I think that's it. So I probably forgot something. But those are how we set up the DRZs and mandatory mods for the Drz400 Supermoto. Thanks. Brakes, again, we're pretty much just running a stock Drz400sm brake system. If you run the E model or an older S model, the new master cylinders hold more brake fluid and are less likely to cook your brakes. Absolutely mandatory mod is a steel braided line. If you don't have a steel braided line, as hard braking, you're going to basically start flexing that line and you lose all your brake pressure. So we just use the standard Drz400sm 310 rotor. And if you want to pan over to the next bike right here, this is that Chinese aftermarket rotor. They actually work pretty well. So when we need to replace a rotor, that's generally what we go with.